Discovered my SIL sneaking around with my Stalker ex while locking my son in his room. So I exposed her to the whole family and now she's out on the street. Hey everyone, I did something recently, and now I'm not sure if I crossed a line or not. It's had some serious consequences for my sister-in-law, and at the moment, everyone seems to think I'm the one to blame. So, here's the background. My sister-in-law, let's call her Jennifer, not her real name, she's 22, and she's been staying with us for the past 3 weeks. Up until now, everything's been going smoothly. We've had no major issues. She's a sweet girl, and I've always liked her. We've generally gotten along pretty well. I'm 30, same age as my husband. We met back in college and dated all the way through. Not long after graduation, we tied the knot. It's been 7 years now. We also have a little boy, Terry, who just turned 4. Because of his job, my husband is gone most of the week and only comes home on weekends. I work full-time too, so having Jennifer around has actually been helpful. We haven't had to spend a dime on a babysitter. Terry isn't in kindergarten yet, he'll start next year, and so far, we've managed without daycare thanks to our parents. They've been great about helping out. But since they're getting older, we didn't want to rely on them too much, and Jennifer moving in seemed like a perfect solution for all of us. Technically, Jennifer could have stayed with her parents, but my husband thought she might appreciate having a bit more personal space. His parents, as much as we love them, can be a little overbearing. Jennifer works from home, so she was in a good position to help us by watching Terry during the day. The arrangement seemed ideal. She got a place to live, and we had someone trustworthy keeping an eye on our son. She's just starting her career and working for a brand new company, so her income isn't exactly high right now. Rent would have been a stretch for her, which is why my husband suggested she come live with us. I was fine with it too. Honestly, the fact that she could help out with Terry during the day just made it even better. We've known each other for years, and I genuinely trusted her. She's quiet, keeps to herself, and never caused any trouble. On weekends, we'd spend time together as a family since that's when I'm off work and my husband is home. It all felt pretty normal until a few days ago, when I noticed something strange with Terry. His behavior around Jennifer started changing in a way that didn't sit right with me. Terry had always been fine with her. Never a problem. But lately, I started noticing that whenever I was home, he'd cling to me and absolutely refuse to be alone in the same room as Jennifer. At first, I didn't think much of it. Kids go through clingy phases, right? I figured maybe he was just in one of those moods. But the more I watched, the more I realized this wasn't normal for him. Terry has always liked his independence. He'd often wander around the house or play by himself, so this sudden shift was strange. It got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. Every time Jennifer was in the living room, Terry would find an excuse to be with me, and only me. So, a couple of days ago, I sat him down for a talk. I told him I'd noticed how he'd been acting around Aunt Jennifer and that I needed to know what was going on. At first, he was really hesitant. He didn't want to talk, which made me worry even more. I reassured him that Jennifer wasn't home. She had told me earlier that day she'd be spending the night at a friend's place for a party, so it felt like the right moment to ask him openly. Once Terry understood that Jennifer was definitely not in the house, he slowly started opening up. He told me he didn't like being around her anymore. My heart immediately sank, and I asked if she had hurt him in any way. Thankfully, he said no, she hadn't done anything to him physically, but what he described still didn't sit right with me. He explained that every day after I left for work, Jennifer would send him to the nursery and tell him to stay there for hours. Terry's the kind of kid who loves exploring, running around the backyard, or just being active. But apparently, Jennifer told him that if he tried to leave the room or made any kind of fuss, I'd come home and get mad at him. So, he'd stay quiet, stuck in that room, bored out of his mind. Hearing that broke my heart. It wasn't like she locked him in there physically, but emotionally? She made him feel trapped. And while it wasn't exactly dangerous, it was definitely unsettling. He told me he hadn't said anything before because he thought I'd be mad at him. That crushed me. He'd kept all this to himself because he was scared, not of me, really, but of getting into trouble somehow. He said he didn't like how Jennifer treated him. Every day, the same routine, stuck in the nursery, no outdoor play, just 4 walls and boredom. And when he told me all this, he made me promise not to yell at him or at Jennifer. That's when I knew he was genuinely scared. She'd made him afraid to even speak up. Now, I probably should have gone straight to her and had a serious conversation. But instead, I wanted to see for myself what exactly was happening. If she was doing something shady or harmful, I wanted actual proof. I didn't want it to turn into a he said she said situation, especially not with my husband's family. They're very close, and I didn't want to be the one throwing around accusations without any evidence. So, that evening, I called a close friend of mine and asked him to help me install nanny cams in the living room and kitchen. He came over and got it all set up for me. The cameras were hidden really well, no one would be able to tell they were there unless I pointed them out. Even Terry didn't know about them. I didn't tell Terry about the cameras because I was worried he might accidentally let something slip. So, I kept him busy and distracted while my friend installed them. Once they were in place, all I had to do was wait for the next day when Jennifer would be home again so I could finally see what was actually going on when I wasn't around. Jennifer had spent the night at her friend's house, and the next morning, just as I was heading out for work, she came back. We chatted like normal, everything seemed totally fine. But the truth was, I wasn't actually going to work that day. Instead, I went next door to my neighbor's house so I could monitor everything through the nanny cams. I'd already talked to my neighbor about it beforehand. I wanted to know if she had ever noticed anything odd happening around our place, like people coming or going when I wasn't home. She said no, nothing strange at all, and kindly offered to let me use her place to keep an eye on things from up close, just in case I needed to step in quickly. From the camera angle, I had a clear view of the nursery door. And sure enough, just a few minutes after I left, I saw Jennifer walking Terry to the room. He didn't want to go, he was clearly upset and resisting, but she kept pushing him. I couldn't hear every word because the mic wasn't close enough, but I caught the low sound of raised voices. A few moments later, she closed the door and locked it. I was honestly shocked. Terry isn't a loud or disruptive kid, he's calm, polite, and pretty good at keeping himself occupied. If this was about Jennifer needing to focus on work, she had nothing to worry about. He would have been fine just walking around the house or playing in the backyard. It didn't make any sense. Part of me wanted to rush back right then and let him out, but another part of me knew I needed to wait. I wanted to see the full picture, to understand what was really happening when I wasn't home. At first, she just sat on the couch, scrolling on her phone. It didn't seem like anything serious. She wasn't working, wasn't cleaning, just sitting there, which made me even more confused. Why lock Terry in his room just to scroll through social media? I kept watching. About an hour passed, and then she headed into the kitchen. I switched to the kitchen camera, curious, and that's when everything changed. She opened the back door, and a man in a hoodie walked in. I couldn't see his face at first, so I had no clue who it was. But once they moved into the living room and he pulled the hoodie down, I felt my heart stop. It was Marcus. My ex. Jennifer knew about Marcus. The only reason she did was because I'd vented about him years ago about how crazy and obsessive he'd gotten after we broke up. We were never even serious. Back in college, we dated briefly, went out a few times, hooked up once, and that was it. I realized pretty quickly that he just wasn't the right guy for me. He was too intense, too much, and I broke it off. Not even 2 weeks later, I started seeing my now husband. I didn't think Marcus would take it so hard. We weren't exclusive or serious, but apparently, he'd really fallen for me. He even told his friends all about me, and once I started dating someone else, they turned on me. People started calling me names, gossiping, making it seem like I'd cheated or something. But I didn't care. I was happy with my husband, and neither of us gave a damn about what anyone had to say. From day one, I was clear with Marcus this wasn't a real relationship. It was just a fling, and I wasn't interested in anything more. So I honestly don't understand why he built this fantasy in his head about us ending up together. But he got weird after the breakup. Really weird. It got to the point where, a couple of years later, I had to file for a restraining order. I was pregnant at the time, and he had started showing up in places he shouldn't be, following me around, watching me. It was scary. The only reason I was even able to get that order in place was because he already had a pattern of unstable, borderline psychotic behavior. After we graduated, he wouldn't let it go. He'd keep messaging me every weekend like clockwork. I ignored him, blocked him, but he just kept creating new accounts. Eventually, I gave up blocking, it was pointless. I figured as long as I ignored him, he'd lose interest. My husband knew the whole story and supported how I chose to handle it. He always told me that if Marcus crossed a line, we'd go to the police together. Thankfully, it never reached that point. Well, until right before my wedding. That's when Marcus went into overdrive. As soon as I posted about my engagement, he started calling, begging me to call it off and take him back. I answered a couple of times just to shut him up, even insulted him, hoping he'd finally leave me alone. But he had no shame. He kept calling and texting. Eventually, I told him I had filed for a restraining order even though I hadn't yet. That bluff finally worked. He backed off, said he'd be back someday, but he stopped bothering me for a while. Every now and then, he'd send some sappy message like I miss you or we're meant to be, but it wasn't threatening. Just pathetic. That all changed once I got pregnant. I didn't tell anyone for the first several months, but when I finally shared the news publicly, boom, the stalking picked up again. At first, I didn't realize it. But then I started noticing a white car with tinted windows showing up wherever I went. Grocery store, doctor's office, daycare, it was always nearby. At first, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, but after a few days, it became clear. I told my husband, and we filed a report with the police. Turned out, that car belonged to Marcus. It turns out Marcus had been watching me ever since I posted about my pregnancy on social media. When the police finally brought him in, he got down on his knees, literally, and begged me to take him back. He kept saying it didn't even matter to him that I was carrying another man's child. He insisted I should leave my husband, claiming I was punishing him unfairly and breaking his heart. It was completely unhinged, and honestly, I was terrified. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I pressed charges and filed for a restraining order. The court granted it for 2 years, and during that time, he left me alone. Since he hadn't contacted me again after that period ended, I figured maybe, just maybe, he'd come to his senses and finally moved on. I hadn't heard a peep from him, so I put it all behind me. But seeing him in my house, making himself comfortable on my couch with Jennifer, kissing and cuddling like everything was normal, it completely blindsided me. I wasn't jealous, no matter what Jennifer later tried to claim. I was furious. This man had harassed and stalked me for years, and now here he was again, back in my life, because of her. She knew what he'd put me through. I had confided in her. And yet she not only got involved with him, but actually invited him into our home, while locking my son away in his room just so she could make out with the guy. The nerve! The sheer audacity of it all was insane. The moment I saw what was happening on the camera feed, I hit record and raced over to my house. I came in through the kitchen door. I didn't want to alert them by fumbling with keys at the front, especially since Jennifer might have locked the living room door. I didn't want to give them even a few seconds to help Marcus slip out the back unnoticed. As soon as I stepped inside, I marched into the living room. There they were, curled up together on the couch like it was date night. I didn't even acknowledge Marcus. I wasn't about to waste my breath on him. I went straight for Jennifer. I started yelling, asking what on earth she thought she was doing. I had trusted her to be responsible, especially around my child, and she'd completely betrayed that trust. She tried to defend herself, saying she and Marcus were in love and had been dating for nearly a year now. She acted like that was supposed to make it all okay, like I should just accept it. But for me, it wasn't even about them being together. What made me so angry was that she had lied to me and mistreated my son just so she could sneak her boyfriend into my home, the same man who used to stalk me and make me fear for my safety. She wasn't just dishonest, she was reckless and selfish. And I wasn't about to let it slide. I told her, point blank, that she needed to pack her things and get out immediately. If she didn't, I'd call the cops on both of them. I wasn't going to let this go. I went straight to Terry's room and let him out. While I was doing that, Marcus slipped out through the back door. Before leaving, he actually had the nerve to tell me he wasn't there to cause trouble, that he was just in love with Jennifer. Like that made it any better. Jennifer, meanwhile, was still trying to talk her way out of it. She started begging me not to kick her out, saying she had nowhere else to go. But that wasn't my problem. She should have thought about that before inviting a dangerous man from my past into my home, especially while I was at work and she was supposed to be caring for my son. I told her in no uncertain terms that she could no longer stay with us. What she did was beyond betrayal, it shattered every bit of trust one had in her, and there was no fixing it. She kept trying to defend Marcus, saying he was a different man now. She claimed he'd spent a long time in therapy and had only acted out before because he'd been under extreme psychological pressure. According to her, that period in his life was behind him and therapy had helped him get back on track. She told me they met at a bar about a year ago. He had approached her because he recognized her from our wedding photos. He said he wanted to apologize, but knew it wasn't appropriate to contact me directly. So, he asked her to pass along his apology. And instead of shutting it down right then and there, she decided to entertain the conversation. She felt sorry for him. One thing led to another, and by the end of the night, he'd asked her out on a date. And she said yes. To her, it was some sweet romantic story. But to me, it was flat out disturbing. He's my age, almost 30 at the time, and she was only 21. That age gap, combined with the creepy backstory, made it all the more unsettling. But what bothered me even more was that she knew everything about what he had done to me. And yet, she still thought it was okay to bring him into my home, around my son, around me. I wasn't obligated to let her live with us in the first place. We're not even related by blood. I did it because I liked her, because I trusted her. I didn't need her as a sitter. There are plenty of people I could have hired if I had to. I invited her into my home because I believed she was a good person who would help out and be part of our family. But she took that trust and tossed it out like it meant nothing. And now she expected me to forgive her? To still let her live under my roof? No way. And it wasn't just about Marcus. It was also about how she treated my son. Locking Terry away in his room so she could cuddle up with her boyfriend while I was gone? That's not something I'll ever be okay with. I wasn't about to let Jennifer off the hook for what she did. I told her firmly and furiously that she needed to pack her things and leave. There was no version of reality where I'd let her continue living under my roof after what she pulled. She argued, pleaded, even begged, but eventually, she realized I wasn't changing my mind. So, she left. The only thing she asked before walking out the door was that I please not tell her parents. She knew they'd be devastated, and deep down, she understood how wrong all of this was. I didn't make any promises, I just stood there in silence, watching her go. After that entire mess, I put Terry down for a nap. It had been a stressful, emotional morning for both of us, but I still needed to tell my husband everything that had happened. And here's where I'll admit, maybe I went too far. I didn't have to do it. But I was so angry, furious that someone I trusted so completely had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Jennifer hadn't just lied to me. She hadn't just mistreated my son. She had invited the one person I feared and hated the most into my home and acted like it was no big deal. So instead of just sending the footage to my husband privately, I dropped it in the family group chat. I knew exactly what that would do. Like I mentioned before, my husband's family is incredibly close, and they don't take betrayal lightly. Just last year, they cut off one of his aunts for gossiping behind his back. That's how serious they are about loyalty and respect. So yes, I knew what I was doing. I knew how his family would react when they saw the video, how hurt and furious they'd be. But I hit send anyway. And just like I expected, things blew up. Her parents were furious. They cut ties with her that same day. They told me over the phone that they couldn't believe she'd do something so dishonest and dangerous, and they wouldn't be speaking to her again. My husband was equally stunned. He was ready to press charges, but I told him to let it go. Honestly, she was already dealing with the fallout. I didn't want to destroy her further. But the damage had been done. Jennifer now had no one left to turn to. She texted me a few hours later, accusing me of ruining her life. She told me she didn't have close friends she could stay with because most of them lived with roommates or their own families. She couldn't live with Marcus either, he still lived with his parents, and they didn't even know about her. If they found out she was connected to me, he might lose his place too. So now she was stuck, struggling to find an apartment she could barely afford on her salary, with no backup plan and no one to help. And that's when the guilt hit me. I know I shouldn't feel bad, but I do. I feel responsible. It's hard not to. I know I acted out of anger. I didn't share that footage just to do the right thing, I wanted her to hurt the way I was hurting. And even though I knew what would happen, I sent it anyway. I talked to my husband about it, and he keeps telling me I'm overthinking everything. He reminds me that this isn't my fault, it's Jennifer's. Even if, somehow, Marcus really has changed, that still doesn't make it okay for her to lock up our son every day. Terry was so scared of that room afterward, we had to start working through it with him slowly. We're still dealing with the aftermath. So yeah, she kind of brought this on herself. But despite all of that, I still feel terrible. That message she sent me. I could tell she was desperate. And it only made me feel worse. I guess that's why I'm here asking, am I the a-hole for getting my sister-in-law in trouble with her family because she was hooking up with my stalker ex? Update 1, thank you all so much for the support. Seriously, your responses helped me process everything that happened and reminded me that I'm not crazy for feeling the way I do. Also, for those who asked, yes, my husband and I have been seriously considering therapy for Terry. We actually started discussing it the day we found out what Jennifer had been doing. We'll probably schedule his first session in the next couple of days. I really appreciate your concern. Update 2, so, we just got an email from Jennifer. It's been nearly 2 weeks since everything went down. And no, before you ask, it wasn't an apology. Not even close. She wrote to let us know that she and Marcus are still together. According to her, everything that happened between us had to happen so that Marcus could find her, and they could be together. She also threw in some nonsense about how I was jealous of her, and I just had to accept that Marcus had moved on. I don't even know where to start with that. Jealous? Of Marcus? I hated that attention. I never wanted anything from him, just distance. Peace. Safety. My husband thought the email was ridiculous and narcissistic. We both agreed that if she ever sends another message, we won't even bother opening it. Not worth our time. But honestly? That email made me feel even more confident about sending that video to the group chat. Everyone deserved to see who she really was. Update 3, hey again. It's been a whole year since we last spoke about this. Thought I'd drop in with a final update. From what we've heard, Jennifer and Marcus got married a few months ago and moved to Canada. She's also pregnant, she announced it about a week ago. Sounds like they're doing well, and you know what? Good for them. Let them have their life. And as for us? Funny thing, my husband and I are expecting too. I'm in my second trimester, and not many people know yet, but we'll be announcing it soon. Terry is absolutely thrilled about becoming a big brother, and my husband and I couldn't be happier. This time around, we're going to be extra careful, no more bad babysitter choices. Lesson learned.